Hello and welcome to the 7th episode of Chuchu is a Ranker's Final Countdown, the show where I detail my personal favourite top 50 albums from least best to best. Now a quick note on the concept of subjectivity. This is not a list of the quote end quote top 50 best albums, it's a list of my top 50 favourite albums. As such, the entire list will likely be made up of weird records that nobody likes but me. But for better or for worse, these are the top 50 records that I just keep coming back to again and again, come rain or shine, and I deeply love and highly recommend each and every one of them. So, without further ado, let's be complete rankers and rank up a storm. These are albums number 20 to 16 of Chuchu is a Ranker's Final Countdown. Kicking off this list at number 20, we have Turn on the Bright Lights by Interpol from 2002, which was the New York post-punk band's debut album. And back then in 2002, I had no idea about post-punk. Britpop had just died and the wave of post-OK Computer art rock clones were inundating the musical landscape. Bands like Travis and Coldplay were dominating the new rock zeitgeist. And then all of a sudden, there was Interpol. And it was a real shock to the system. Like I said, I had no idea what post-punk was at that time. I hadn't gotten around to Joy Division. I mean, I liked Echo and the Bunnymen, but I mostly gravitated to their 90s Britpop stuff at that time. And to me, The Cure were that band that made Friday I'm in Love, so yes, I was a total musical philistine back then. So Interpol with their black suits, mesmeric and mysterious singer, and brooding gothic darkness absolutely blew my 21-year-old mind out the back of my skull. Basically, they changed my life. Like, I went out, I got myself a black suit, and spent the rest of my 20s dressed in that black suit and red tie combo. But more than that, the change brought a new attitude with it, and I finally found my inner swagger and ability to be nonchalant and cool. Plus, the effect Interpol's music had on my own musical compositions and band life was profound. And of course, it led me back to the glory days of post-punk and all those hitherto unknown pleasures and masterpieces. Musically, one of the coolest things about Interpol was their guitar style. The interplay between Daniel Kessler's and Paul Banks' angular guitar lines was incredible. I'd never heard anything quite like it. It was just so badass. As was Carlos Stengler's bass, which also got in on the interplay action. Tracks like PDA, Obstacle 2, Roland, and the experimental masterpiece The New all feature instrumental climaxes that put the guitars out on display in breathtaking ways. Chef's kiss for Interpol's guitar work. I still think it's some of the coolest instrumental stuff ever put to tape. Other highlights from a hard modern classic would include the achingly sad opener, Untitled, which sucks you in like a depressing vortex with his ethereal feel. Obstacle 1 is a pulsing rocker that sees Paul Banks obliquely snarl, "You'll go stabbing yourself in the neck." NYC is a maudlin downbeat dirge that acts as an urbane night terror of a tribute to the band's hometown, full of love but also unchecked vice and latent violence. Say Hello to the Angels ramps up the pace and impresses with its This Charming Man style disco jangle, while closer Leif Erikson slaps with his gloomy balladry, as Paul Banks warns, "She feels that my sentimental side should be held with kids' gloves, but she doesn't know that I've left my urge in the icebox." So yeah, there are very few albums that impacted me as much as Turn on the Bright Lights, but beyond my personal connection, it still stands as one of the most consistent and downright coolest post-punk records ever recorded. 5 stars. Next up we have Infinityland by Biffy Clyro from 2004, which was the Scottish rocker's third LP. And here we have my favourite ever metal adjacent record. At this time, Biffy Clyro were in slow ascent, bubbling up from the underground. The band's next album, Puzzle, would thrust them into the mainstream of British rock, but it's here on their prelude to success that Biffy found their true artistic peak. The pleasure of this album is its musical insanity. Bored with creating normally structured songs, here the band turned to prog for inspiration, providing a set of songs that never sit still, ducking and diving in unexpected and thrilling directions. This in turn leads to a great sense of variety, despite the unwavering heavyset nature of the group. Highlights on a consistent, twisting beast of a record would include, you guessed it, everything. I mean, there is not a moment of downtime on the entire package. Save for that secret track that comes after about 10 minutes of silence. That one can get in the bin, but I basically never listened to it anyway, so who gives a shit? Anyway, my favourites from a roster of bangers would include the opening single, Glitter and Trauma, which ramps up with an atmospheric intro before launching into a catchy sing-along slice of metal-tinged indie pop. Some Kind of Wizard catches the attention with this always shifting and ridiculously strident chord sequence that acts as a handy tool for moshing around your living room. One Word Comes to Mind mixes soaring emotional balladry with blasts of unexpected metal to great anthemic effect. There's No Such Thing as a Jaggy Snake is delightfully bonkers with its demented screams that eventually dovetail into an extremely catchy chorus. While Wave Upon Wave Upon Wave is fantastic with its obfuscating proggy structure and final explosion into melancholy walls of shoegazy noise. But yeah, you just can't put a toe wrong here. From the rampaging pop rock of Strung to Your Ribcage, to the quietly anthemic The Kids from Kibble and the Fist of Light, to the laid-back sweep of the Incubus-esque My Recovery Injection, to the horn-laced, frantic, rope-a-doking jangle pop of The Weapons Are Concealed, Biffy Clyro's Infinity Land is a joyous, surprising, and musically impressive treat from start to finish. Even when its lyrics dive into dark, suicidal places, the record remains steadfastly fun and full of creative energy. 5 stars. Next up we have Promenade by the Divine Comedy from 1994, which was the Neil Hannon-fronted act's third LP. And on this, Neil turns his attention to Europe, turning in a supremely elegant and eloquent album of grandiose Baroque pop that wears its bookish intelligence proudly on its sleeve. Adding to the stately feel of the record is its theme, as Promenade is actually a concept album that tracks two lovers spending a day together in some marbled European city or other. Due to this, the album does noticeably ache with a certain romanticism. In fact, it's very deftly done, pulling on the heartstrings without ever falling into schmaltziness or over-sentimentality. Highlights on a sweepingly lush ride, as per usual, would include everything. The album is incredibly consistent and kind of homogenized in its super cohesive stylings. This is a record that really takes you on a proper journey from start to finish, one with a tangible beginning, a middle and an end. But a lot of levity is mixed in with the romantic elegance, as Neil regularly lets his wit out of the bag to rampage around and plaster a smile all across your mug. Opener Bath kicks off with a wry chuckle, as its dramatic stormy string intro dovetails into the opening line, Rub-a-dub-dub, it's time for a scrub. A seafood song is peak Neil Hannon, as he blasts through an elegant sounding jangle pop tune that deals with a very serious subject of just how much he likes to eat fish. The semi-rap finale is especially fun. The Book Lovers presents a spoken word parade of classic authors over a Baroque-laced rocker. A few gahuffles are thrown in there via the use of silly soundbites that follow each author's announcement. While a drinking song is a bunch of sloshingly upbeat fun that makes you want to immediately head out to your nearest Red Lion for a pint and a punch-up. Elsewhere you get some really phenomenal lyrics to chew on. The Summer House is a ridiculously grandiose ballad that has a Nabokovian flavour to its super romantic wordsmithing. Talking about romanticism, the likes of Going Downhill Fast and Geronimo perfectly captures the feeling of anticipation and intimacy between the two conceptualized lovers. While Don't Look Down sees Neil turning his attention to the Almighty, chiding, well God, it's like this. It may be arrogance or just appalling taste, but I'd rather use my pain than let it all go to waste on some old God who tells me what I want to hear, as if I cannot tell obedience from fear. I want to take my pleasures where and how I will, be they disgraceful or distasteful or distilled. And to be frank, I find that life has more appeal without a driver who's asleep behind the wheel. Chef's kiss, Neil Hannon is truly one of the best lyricists to ever pick up the microphone. So yeah, add into that the sweeping grandeur of tracks like When the Lights Go Out All Over Europe and 10 Seconds to Midnight, and the cathartic Raymond Briggs stylings of the band's soaring signature tune, Tonight We Fly, and you have one of the greatest chamber pop records ever put to tape. 5 stars. Next up we have Pornography by The Cure from 1982, which was the post-punk icon's 4th LP. And here we find The Cure at their most drug-addled, paranoid and combustible. The sessions for this album were famously fraught, with the band members at each other's throats throughout. Things got so intense that after the record was completed, Robert Smith disbanded The Cure and joined Susie and the Banshees as the guitarist for a bit of respite. And when The Cure did return, it was with a much lighter, more pop-orientated sound. But the result was worth the discomfort, as Pornography stands as one of the darkest, most atmospheric and consistent post-punk albums ever recorded. It's a straight-up gothic masterpiece. The record's sound palette is so cohesive that the tracks all kind of merge into a singular, homogenized whole, but in the best absorbingly atmospheric kind of way. As such, picking out highlights is a bit of a moot point, as the overall atmosphere is the ultimate highlight. Still, the opening 100 Years is rad with its wailing guitars and sinister lyrics, as Robert Smith growls, 100 years of blood, crimson. The ribbon tightens around my throat. I open my mouth and my head bursts open. A sound like a tiger thrashing in the water. Thrashing in the water. Over and over, we die one after the other. Chef's kiss, those lyrics are just so fucking badass. A short-term effect catches the attention with its dissonant guitars that sound like twisted, fucked up whale song. The album single, The Hanging Garden, brings a touch of lightness to the record with its energetically thumping percussion section and catchy vocal lines countering its morbid lyrics, as Smith spits, "Cover my face as the animals die." Also exploding out of the track list like a single ray of sun through a cold black sky would be A Strange Day, with the tune's driving bassline and cathartic ascending climax obscuring the fact that the song is actually about suicide by drowning yourself in the ocean. While Cold sucks you in with its bombastic intro that sounds like it should be the entrance theme for a gothic leather-wearing WWE superstar. But yeah, everything on this record hits its own mark of perfection. From the dark, sludgy dirges of Siamese Twins and The Figurehead, to the panicked, desperate-sounding closer Pornography, which sounds like the audio equivalent of having a heart attack due to doing too much cocaine, it's all pitch-black, brilliant stuff that always adds to the overall suffocating atmosphere of the piece. If you're after a descent into the heart of darkness, well, you just can't do much better than this. 5 stars. So, concluding this episode at number 16, we have Viva by Morrissey from 1988, which was the Bard's debut solo LP. And here Morrissey was still reeling around his fountain due to the breakup of the Smiths, channeling his sadness into a set of songs that retreated back to Manchester in the 1970s. It seemed that the uncertainty and pain of his band's dissolution sent Moz running back to the cover of his youth and all the rain-sodden misery that came with it. Of course, Johnny Marr was not an easy guitarist or songwriting partner to replace, but here producer and co-writer Stephen Street and the Durutti column guitarist Vinnie Riley came to Morrissey's rescue, gifting him with a beautifully melancholy and spacious set of compositions that perfectly matched his obviously vulnerable state of mind. And it all came together wonderfully, resulting in an overwhelmingly emotive record that got Morrissey's solo career off to a flying start. On a personal level, Viva Hate is one of the most meaningful albums ever for me. I found it right at the point in my life where I was at my most miserable and about one more bad day from shuffling myself off the mortal coil. And yeah, it's a total cliche, but Morrissey's music really did help me at that time. It was the old hand on the shoulder and the feeling that someone out there understood me and all that kind of treacly shit that I'm well glad to be shot of now that I'm older. As Morrissey says pretty much exactly on the gorgeous Break Up the Family. I'm so glad to grow older, to move away from those awful times. I want to see all of my friends tonight. Other highlights on an album with no weak tunes would include the jangly pop of Morrissey's debut solo single, Suede Head. It's like Stephen Street knew exactly what Morrissey needed to blast him out of the blocks and into the UK charts. Indeed, Suede Head did immediately outstrip the success of the Smiths, crashing in at number 5 on the singles chart. Other classic top 10 hit, Every Day is Like Sunday, is even better, with its lovely sea-swept balladry juxtaposed by Morrissey's hilarious contempt for British seaside towns, as he looks to the sky and begs, "Come, come, nuclear bomb." As a guy who grew up in Portsmouth, I feel that one deep in my bones. Angel Angel Down We Go Together is a short but impactful howl of catharsis, tied together by a beautiful string arrangement. The somewhat controversial Bengalian Platforms houses a wilting kind of melancholy that I absolutely love. Its acoustic guitar trills and Indian strings are simply wondrous. People often get their knickers in a twist over that song, but that's idiocy if you ask me. Morrissey is not saying that foreigners aren't welcome in England, he's saying that England is a terrible place, so why would they want to go there in the first place? I mean, hey, I'm from England, and if I ever have to set foot back in Birmingham ever again, I'm going to step out in front of the nearest fucking ice cream truck. But yeah, I could reel off every track on the record as a potential highlight. From the collapsing peak into Morrissey's teenage life that is Late Night Magdalen Street, to the fun rampaging guitars of I Don't Mind If You Forget Me, to the beautifully wistful feel of Dial a Cliché, to the Spanish guitar flourishes on Closer, Margaret on a Guillotine, it's all essential stuff. Hell, I mean, it took me a while to come around on it, but I even kind of like Treat Me Like a Human Being, the track that Morrissey replaced the Ordinary Boys with on his remastered version. Simply put, Viva Hate is a masterpiece of 1980s jangle guitar pop and one of Morrissey's very best works, and yes, that does include the Smiths. 5 stars. So, stop braiding your pubes, you dirty dick rasta, and turn your attention to the Battle of Decades style scoreboard, where we tabulate how many records from each decade make up my personal top 50 favourite albums. The 1990s remain in the lead with 10 entries. The 1980s move up into second with 8 entries. The 1970s and the 2000s are now tied for third with 6 entries apiece. The 2010s are in 5th with 3 entries, and coming up the rear like an unwashed raw-dogging hippie is the 1960s with only 2 entries. And that's another episode of Chuchu's a Ranker's Final Countdown in the bag. As always, if you want to sound off in the comments and give your own rankings of these records, please feel free. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and all that other kind of YouTube jazz. Make sure to take care of yourself, but most importantly, just keep on ranking.